Forbes Books presents The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani, highlighting the pioneers that reimagined possibilities and reimagined businesses. We've obviously spoken a lot about the internet on this podcast, but this week we're going to get into the intranet with our guest Michael Cohen, who's a collaborative lead at Hyatt Hotels. Mike is responsible for overseeing strategy, development, and operations for their communications portfolio, including business process, email, and intranet platform. Jerry and Mike are going to get into why data is at the center of everything and how AI will augment humans, not replace them. Hey, Jerry, how are you?
Good. How are you, Joe? Good talking to you from Chicago.
I was going to say, you are the hardest working man in tech. I can't keep up with the number of cities that you're in. You're currently in Chicago. What brought you to what they call the Windy City?
Yeah, we are on our stop on our book tour, and Chicago is a place where we have many interesting connections. And for us, it's an area that is developing, so we wanted to stop in Chicago.
Excellent. And our guest this week is going to be Michael Cohen from Hyatt Hotels Corporation. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Did you guys arrange your outfits for today? Because you both have...
Swear to you, we haven't talked about this.
It's a cold day. That's why I have my vest on. But it does look like we coordinated.
Yeah.
I feel left out. I feel like I should run into my closet now and grab a vest or something. But Mike, we always like to start these shows, and I want to go way back with you because you seem like a cool cat. When did you fall in love with tech? Were you like one of those little kids taking apart their Nintendo system and your parents screaming at you? Like, when did you fall in love with tech?
You know, I always liked playing around with computers, but I would never have considered myself some type of tech geek at all. I just, I was in college and coming out, I had an opportunity to work with a consulting firm, really focused on tech, and I just ran with it from there. Kind of made my career out of that.
Interesting. And so what was it that brought you into the consulting space? Because that's a very specific, were you just like looking for a gig or what happened?
You know, it's interesting. I was a mechanical engineer in college, got through my courses. They kept on saying after your junior, senior years, you'll like what you do. And I just said, let me graduate and let me come out and try to find something I enjoy doing myself. And consulting was just, something providing an opportunity where you could meet with people and understand problems. And I just fell in love with it.
And Jerry, we don't just have nobodies on our show. There's a reason for every guest here. So Jerry, why is Mike Cohen on this podcast? What is he bringing to the table?
Well, he has been seeing a lot of interesting cases of how technology interacts with business and very interesting ways of using technology that are transformative. And I think Mike has very interesting ideas to talk about, and that's why we invited him.
Cool. And Mike, how did you get to know Jerry and his team there?
You know, I've had a long-term relationship with OSF, developing our intranet, and met Jerry through our team.
And what was your first impressions? Because Jerry's that strong, silent type. He looks like one of the guys from like a Liam Neeson movie. What was it once you got working with OSF and knew like you made the right choice?
Working with OSF has been great, and you can just tell they're technology leaders. We have some extremely smart people on our team that we've kept across for years. So it's been a great relationship. I consider OSF a strategic partner of Hyatt.
As you know, Mike, running theme on this show has been digital transformation. And I know this is a loaded question, but you who's been doing this for quite a while, how would you describe digital transformation? What does it mean to you?
That's a great question because there are all these types of definitions and it's a broad term. But for me, I just try to solve problems. You're basically looking at work people have been doing a certain way, either paper-based, email-based, Excel-based, and rethinking it so you can digitize it and make people more productive.
And so, Mike, digital transformation, when it comes to doing something like that at the scale of Hyatt, we don't need to add any context here. We know Hyatt's big. What is that like when you're trying to do something like that in such a huge organization?
Well, first off, I think what's what's driven transformation at Hyatt is just the scale and how much we've grown. I'd say 10 years ago we were at 300-400 hotels. Now we're at 1,300. So just the way you do business has to change, right? You have the same number of people, but 70 to 150% of the work. So people just start rethinking how they do things. So that's been my job over the last 10 years, is just people coming to me saying, Mike, I've got a problem. This is what we're doing today. How do we make this process better?
And even small things that you are doing, like imagine saving 5 minutes at the scale of Hyatt is 5 minutes per person per day at the scale of Hyatt can add up quickly.
And Mike, I'm sure your job comes fully loaded because you have multiple components. You have the B2C element, but then you also have the B2B because you're dealing with these individual hotels. How do you juggle that balance? Does that make your job 50-50, or is it one of those things where one outweighs the other? I mean,
listen, our job is to service hotels, but when you have that many, you can't reach out to everyone, right? So it's a bit of a juggling act. What we try to do is we try to get various people in operations involved, as a buffer, just because we can't reach out to everyone at once.
Can you take us behind the curtain a little bit in terms of how that works in your organization without getting too into proprietary information or anything like that?
Well, sure. I mean, let's just give an example. We're developing a product right now to build out guest request work orders, inspections, and we've been doing this, I'd say, over a 3-year period of time. We have business sponsors that we work closely with that help provide us requirements, but it's also useful to know how is your hotel using the tool, right? Because business sponsors don't necessarily know everything about how the tool is getting used at hotels. So I'd say it's a balancing act. You can't reach out to every single hotel to ask questions, but you also sometimes just have to try using the tool yourself and see what you think of it. And if you're not happy with how the tool's working and you think it's complex, then certainly you can't expect hotels to be using it too.
Maybe it would be interesting for you to talk a little bit about surprising ways that people have interacting and use technology in ways that you haven't been thinking of. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we have cases, Jerry, where we'll be asked to do an enhancement to a tool where the enhancement takes on a life of its own, where we weren't expecting it to be used in the manner that people start doing. An example would be we have an inspection process where you go room by room, inspect the rooms, and then end of the month you're getting these reports on which rooms have been inspected, which haven't. But if you're at a hotel and you're walking the floor, the whole idea was I'm on the 7th floor of a hotel. I have 2 extra minutes in my day. Let me quickly pull up my app and see which room on this floor hasn't been inspected within a 30-day time frame. So we built that out. But next thing we saw is that, oh, wow, you have a number of housekeeping execs that never had access to what the status of a room was on their mobile device. And what these housekeeping execs were doing was they were running from floor back to their office to print reports, to go back up and inspect a room, or perhaps even look at rooms that are out of service or out of order and see, can we bring them back in, pick up rooms. And just having this simple utility, right, where you could see rooms with their status on the device is something that really took off that we just weren't expecting.
Yeah, it's a very interesting way of looking at technology, and just by bringing that up and giving this availability, making it easy to actually access this information, it kind of changed their way of operating.
Yeah. And it's something where, again, we didn't even realize this would have the value that it did. Probably sparked about 6 months of development enhancements around the tool, and just came unexpected. So, it just comes down to the fact that when you build something, you're constantly iterating, talking with people, and trying to figure out how to improve things.
And I'm curious, with a company like Hyatt, when do you pull the plug on something? Because that was a concept that you didn't realize was going to have all these other bonus features to it. But when do you untransform? When do you pull a pin on something like, hey, this platform's not working?
I mean, we do it. right? You can build something and years later realize that the market has progressed and all the brands have been purchasing a certain off-the-shelf solution, and you need to pivot. So I think that, in IT, we're constantly evaluating our systems. Every 3 years you're looking at them, and even if you think you're fine, you're still evaluating them and saying, is there something better, cheaper that's out on the marketplace?
I'm curious about the fact that there's this intersection of hospitality and technology that kind of goes unspoken, that they kind of go hand in hand now, because you can't be in the hospitality industry without having some sort of tech influence, whether it's through an app, whether it's through a platform you're building. How important does tech play into what Hyatt does? Because I feel like in hospitality, if you're not doing it right, your hospitality game really doesn't mean anything.
It's an interesting question. If you don't innovate from a technology standpoint, how do you make yourself better than the other brands that are out there? I mean, everyone is always trying to push technology, so you either have to stay with them or try to stay ahead of them. Perfect example for Hyatt is mobile key. We partnered with Apple, and we're the first major brand to allow you to open your door through your iPhone. It's something we're pretty proud of, but it's not easy to do either.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is also how do you improve the experience so that it becomes frictionless, so you don't have to actually call the reception every time when you need something, or make things a little bit more seamless. So technology has a big impact in making these things happen.
Mike, I'd love to get more information if you can about this Apple key thing, because to me, this is like, for people like me who live through their phone, like I start my car through my phone. This is for like the tech savvy people. Like, this is a big deal. It sounds, can you give me some of the information? Like, how do you pull that off? Because I know every hotel is created differently. So some people have like the swipe, some people have the tap. How do you get that? How do you get everyone on the same page when it comes to something like that?
We have a really smart digital team with the partnership with Apple, which is the first thing you need, right? You need to convince Apple that you're the right partner to go with. But then you also have to replace your door locks, which isn't cheap either, right? So we launched, and we had maybe 6 hotels, when we launched with that capability. Now, I don't know, we have several hundred. But from a hotel standpoint, they like it because each one of those key cards that you walk out with costs 30 cents or whatever, right? So there's a dollar savings that comes along with it. Plus, just like you said, someone like yourself does everything through your phone, and that's your expectation, right? Your expectation is when you come in, you can use your phone to get into your room.
And also that gives you a cool factor, and people sometimes post on Instagram and social media when they have a great experience, like, wow, I didn't expect this happening.
That dovetails perfectly in what I want to go to next, Michael, and that's tech adoption. When you're doing this, you start with 6 hotels is the key thing, and you go up to hundreds. There's some people that don't want to change the way they're doing. So when you have an initiative like that, or similar ones that will change the way the boots on the ground do their job, how do you connect the dots with those groups of people? The folks who are like, hey, we do it this way, and then all of a sudden the tech guy's like, no, we got this new way of doing it. How do you bridge that gap? In the world where I live, it's kind of interesting. I focus more on the internal side of business, and I can develop something, and people don't have to use it if it's not valuable to them, right? So, in fact, let's just take an intranet, for instance. We oversee our intranet at Hyatt, but nothing stops a department, from going out and purchasing their own software as a service solution. So, you just have to be better than your competition in that case. You're not going to win over everyone, but eventually you get to a certain point of scale where people only want to go, our internet's called Hyatt Connect, but they only want to go to Hyatt Connect. They're tired of going to these other sites. But you have to get to that point of scale where people trust your solution, and then everybody starts folding in. From a standpoint of the door locks, that's a little harder, right? We provide the service. At some point in time, if you're going to be doing a renovation, replacing your locks, it's a no-brainer, right? But how do you get a hotel to invest money for door locks? They might just wait a period of time. It's amazing how much your industry has changed when it comes to the internet and Wi-Fi in the hotels. Man, I remember going to a hotel. It's like you can be in one room, have the best internet, and go down the hall and have no internet. And this is not a Hyatt question, but like, have hotels finally got this internet Wi-Fi thing straightened out where it can be a good experience?
I know that's a battle across our hotels, and it's hard, right? Because people have this expectation when they're at home, they have really good internet, and when they come to a hotel and they're paying X amount of dollars per night, they're expecting as good an experience that they have when they're at home.
That's actually a very interesting question, and that made me think. It's been a while since I've been in a hotel without a good internet connection. I think what is still frustrating me is that hotels want to charge for internet, and for me, internet is like water. They should be included by default. Now, you can have options and everything, but at least basic internet should be there, the same as electricity, water, heating. Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've been in, and I travel a lot. Joe, we are talking to each other since from the entire globe. That's made me realize that it's been a while since I haven't had the internet issues in a hotel.
And that's how we felt at Hyatt about internet. I'd say, I don't know if it was 5 years ago, we made internet free for everyone, whether you're a member or not. Some chains make you join their loyalty program in order to get free internet, but we just don't feel it's something you should charge for. As you're saying, you're already spending money per night on a room, and your expectation is you should have internet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you don't charge anybody for taking a shower. It's like I think it should be.
Well, who knows? Now with the recession and inflation, Jerry, you might see that on your bill next time. Let's talk about data. And I know, Mike, you wear a lot of hats there at Hyatt. Data has become a 4-letter word for a lot of folks. It's a loaded word. Where do you fit in data and Hyatt? Where do you fit in that puzzle piece?
Again, as being part of the intranet or developing applications, I'm just trying to collect as much data as I can and then surface it to people in a way that's meaningful. So to give an example, on the intranet, a lot of people used to be concerned around page clicks. How much is my page being viewed? But that's really not the right question. What we want to understand is, from a hotel perspective, is a hotel using all the tools that they have access to, right? So across applications, which applications are they accessing and which applications aren't they? And trying to do it through that lens, right? Because if you have a hotel that isn't performing well in terms of like customer service, working order, and cleanliness scores, you want to take a look at the data behind how they're using our systems, and it could just be that they might not be aware of something.
And we have data, but something that Jerry and I have spoken to with previous guests is the right data, because now we just have way too much. So how do you know the right data is?
No, it's again, what I'm trying to do in my systems is surface data that people tell me is valuable, either at a hotel level or more frequently at an above property level. So we franchise. So I need to now be presenting data to an above property franchise that says this is how your hotels are using our information. But there's a lot of data out there.
You said something that really, I think you talk to people. I think that's still important, to talk to people, like talk to your users, talk to the people that consume your systems and services, and understand what is their day-to-day, what is their reality, what do they need, and how do they interact with software, and then that gives you a way of boiling down the data in a way that it's relevant. It's in a way that is relevant for their context and your context, so that you can then analyze what they are doing. But you cannot get to this without actually talking to these people, and some of them, I suppose, they are real champions on using the systems, and they can give you really interesting insight into how to capture and look at data.
It's funny, Mike, that I don't want to speak about IT people in broad terms, but they're not the best listeners. Sometimes they're just like, hey, listen, plug this in, reboot, do what we say, but don't listen. You seem to have a really good, strong, soft skill of being a good listener. Is that something that came natural to you, or is that something you refined over your time? Because it seems like the listen piece, like Jerry was breaking down, it's really important for your role. But again, most IT guys, they don't want to listen to anything. They want to just do their job and move on.
It's his consulting background. That's where it comes from.
I would hope in IT that we listen, because that's the only way we develop things that actually make sense. But you know what? I think that like everyone else, I'm still learning. I'm still figuring things out. And listening to people's problems is key. And you know what? Some people might not necessarily be able to describe what it is that they want to do, but then you have others that very clearly know this is how I was doing it somewhere else, or this is what another brand is providing me. And when you can have someone clearly articulate what the needs are, that's when you can really put your team to work and develop something useful.
Let's get a little future focused and talk about AI. How's AI fitting in what you're doing there at Hyatt?
Interesting. I mean, we need the data first. So, the systems I built, I think I was having a discussion with Jerry, we're talking about adoption and when you're rolling things out to 1,300 hotels, how do you get adoption of tools? So we're still working towards that adoption, but eventually with the data we have, you try to be making some insights on how to work better. An example, I have a team member of mine that works on workforce management, and she's looking very closely right now at labor forecasting, which is, takes an input across occupancy and groups in house, trying to predict for your restaurants when you should start staffing up, staffing down so you don't have as much overtime. And that's where AI and data really comes into play in my mind.
How do you think that AI will evolve, the usage of AI? Where do you see AI moving forward in the next years? Like, what's your take on it?
That's tough, but I mean, I look at AI as just, for me, to how to have teams operate more efficiently, whether, again, it's labor management or restaurant covers. But, this thought of, robots running a hotel, like I think we know that's not going to happen. But yeah, we can have people check in on their phone and go touchless into their room. But from a standpoint of AI, I think we're just trying to figure out how to reduce operational friction.
Yeah, we did talk yesterday, I believe, Joe. We had a conversation about the late checkout request in the hotels, and we discussed. But the late checkout is kind of a thing that comes up again and again and again, and that people working with the hotel should have easy access. But the same, it could be any other request that an AI could bring up and could provide easier access for people to solve, so that when you are there, you would not have to spend your time talking to someone on the reception, and it should be seamless, it should be frictionless, should be flowing, your experience with the hotel.
The hotel industry has been using AI for years, and we don't know it as that, but like your hotel rates, it's not like you have one person sitting in office being like, hey, on August 3rd, the room is going to cost this much. That's basically your AI working in the background, setting rates for these rooms, correct?
Yeah, we have a revenue management system. We're actually moving to a new one. But just like the airline industries, right? You're trying to update your rates throughout the day to know what to charge.
And AI plays a part in that, correct?
It has to, right? Because otherwise you're going to have people trying to override the system and supply their own rates to it, and it gets complex, right? We have OTAs that we partner with, your Travelocities, et cetera, but they take a fairly large commission around a rate like that, right? So you're using AI from a rate standpoint to figure out, should you potentially be dropping your rate with trying to combat OTAs. It's an area I don't have too much expertise in, but from an AI standpoint, you're spot on. That's probably one where you get the largest value.
As Jerry knows, I don't like talking about the pandemic times, the dark times, but what kind of digital transformations did you guys have to take place during 2020, 21 that you probably wouldn't have done or probably waited to do, but because of what happened with the pandemic, you were forced to make these digital transformations?
Yeah, I mean, that was a dark time for sure. We let go, I'd say, 35% of our office. So basically what happened is that you had people that were directors, moving back into analyst positions for, a period of months until the recovery happened. And what happened to me was you had very bright people that were looking at repetitive processes saying, hey, I can think of a way to improve this. And I started getting calls from all these high-level people that were back doing, work that they had done 5-10 years ago, but they could see right away how to improve this stuff. So it all comes down to automation. When we built back differently, we built back smarter, but automation was a huge part of our strategy moving forward. And what's nice in that regard is that I have a team completely focused on just that, right? People come to us and we automate processes for them.
Just think of the QR code, like we were talking about the QR code. Like before pandemic, I don't know if most people would know what the QR code was, but now it's like everywhere, and it has become, and in hotels are still being used a lot. Like you no longer have the paper menus, you have a QR code, you open it up and you can order something or you can do something with it.
We have a pilot going on just there. Through our World of Hyatt app, you can make a guest request. But Jerry, just like yourself, you probably don't have every single brand's app on your phone. So the idea is there's a QR code in your room that you can point at, and you can make your selection right from your phone. I think this is what people want. They don't necessarily want to call the front desk to make a request around needing more towels, for instance. You want to do that from your phone. And no one knew what a QR code was 3 years ago, right? So
times are changing. And I want to talk a little bit about your job behind the scenes, because a big part of it is managing the communications portfolio. And I mentioned, and it's obvious, Hyatt's huge. The amount of platforms that you're involved with, overseeing, making sure, and I'm sure Jerry's team at OSF helps with that, but like, man, for an outsider, it seems overwhelming the number of platforms you're probably involved with on a day-to-day basis.
We have a couple key platforms, ServiceNow, SharePoint, and then a couple other systems that we have in there. But from an internal communication standpoint, it's not just the ones that I own, right? I don't want to say anyone, but it's possible to go out and use another system, right? So I think that's the challenge I've always come into is finding out either, a hotel or a group of people that have gone out and purchased a solution, which is obviously telling you that there's a gap, right? They're going that direction for a reason. But that's always been the biggest challenge I've had from a communication standpoint is just the easy access to external systems and having people set that up.
And how do you manage that, like to make sense of it and making sure that you develop then everything in order to fill in those gaps, and maybe when they are going out and they are purchasing something, that is an indicator that there might be something to improve, or there might be some new things that you might have not been thinking about, and it's a good feedback. It's a good feedback loop.
It is, and sometimes it fits perfectly into what you're doing. So we purchased a hotel company, Two Roads. They're a lifestyle brand mainly out in Asia Pacific, and they were using a task management tool that was gaining a lot of traction. And a lot of what I've done over the years is dealing in tasks. And I looked at that and said, you know what, we need to develop a global task system at Hyatt so we don't ask our hotels to learn all these different systems. So it's a challenge I took on, and we were able to replace that. Now the next problem is you have 50 hotels using this. Now you have to figure out how to increase that adoption. But it fit into the roadmap of what I was thinking, because right at the time of COVID came along, we had our operations team reach out to us, and they asked us to develop a guest request and work order system, which basically was built right on top of this task system that we did. So there's certain things that you look at and you can't tackle everything, but there are certain scenarios where you say that fits into the direction that I want to try to get to.
And I guess one of the tricky jobs with you is making sure all of these systems talk to each other. Because I have in my office, we use this one platform that doesn't connect to Google Mail. So it's like all of a sudden you have to use two different platforms. How do you keep a synergy between all of these platforms?
Again, part of what my team does is they work with a number of other product owners, in providing integrations. So let's just say, for instance, we need to integrate with our loyalty management system. We actually do that through ServiceNow. Hotels can make requests if they wanted to potentially compensate a guest some number of points. You need a way of doing this. It just has to be developed. So there's integrations for everything, but as you know, it's time, it's money, it's effort.
So to you, what keeps you up at night? What is the one thing about your job? And it's not about how bad the Bulls and Cubs are. What is it that keeps you up at night about your job that makes you want to get up and be like, oh my God, I got to fix this right now? Is there one thing that pops up night after night with you?
I mean, there's so many things. I mean, it's a constant challenge, right? You develop something, but you can never become content with what you've developed because your competitors are trying to lap you at that point. So it's this constant thought of churning in your mind of how do you take something to that next level. You might be successful right now, but someone else is trying to pass you up.
I'm not sure if they taught you this at University of Illinois when you're getting your mechanical engineering degree. Does every IT guy, are they taught to tell you to turn off your computer and turn it back on before you do anything? Is that part of the curriculum? Because every IT person I've ever known, any customer service person I've spoken to, they've always said, have you tried turning off and turning on your computer? Is that part of a core curriculum for mechanical engineers?
I'm embarrassed to say that, but I've certainly gone with that line. Another typical line I have is refresh your browser. I can even give you the shortcut key for it, Control-Shift-R. And it's my team that's taught me that over the years. But there's nothing more embarrassing than having to tell someone to fix their problem by restarting their computer. There's something else going on at that point in time, right?
Okay, I just didn't know if that was part of the education. That's how you get your BS. You have to learn.
All IT people have this thing, like there is a training manual on page 1, restart your computer. That's how it starts. Like that's how we roll.
I haven't turned off my computer in ages, so.
Wow, the rebel IT guy, Mike Cohen. Well, Mike, thank you very much for taking the time. We really appreciate you sharing what's going on with Hyatt and the work you're doing.
Thank
Good to meet you.
That was Michael Cohen, the Collaborative Systems Lead at Hyatt Hotels, and you can find out more about him and connect with Michael on LinkedIn. This has been The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani. To participate in the conversation, go to gerardzatvani.com. The Great Digital Transformation is a production of Forbes Books.